The morning the wagon arrived, Elias Blackwood was repairing a broken fence post when he heard the distant rumble of wheels. He stopped hammering and looked toward the dusty trail that crossed the golden prairie. For 3 months, he had been waiting for that wagon. 3 months since he had sent his letter and payment to the marriage broker in the distant trading town. 3 months since he had written down the qualities he wanted in a wife: someone kind, someone honest, someone who would not be frightened by the lonely life of the frontier. He had not asked for beauty. He had not asked for wealth. He only wanted someone who would stay. Elias was a human Apache who had spent most of his adult life traveling between the wilderness and the growing settlement. He knew how to hunt, track, ride, and survive storms that could kill a careless man overnight. But none of those skills had prepared him for the loneliness of coming home to an empty cabin every evening. So he had decided to try something different. He had ordered a bride. At least, that was what he believed. The wagon finally stopped outside his small wooden cabin. Elias wiped the dust from his hands and walked toward it. The driver climbed down first. Then came silence. Elias frowned. According to the letter he had received, his bride was supposed to be a young woman from a farming family several hundred miles away. The description had mentioned brown hair, green eyes, and a quiet personality. But when the wagon door opened, an orc girl stepped down. Elias stared. She was tall, though she stood with her shoulders bent as if she were trying to make herself smaller. Her skin was a deep gray-green, and 2 small tusks showed beneath her trembling lips. Her dark hair was tangled from the long journey, and her simple dress was faded and torn at the hem. She carried no luggage except for a small cloth bundle. The moment her feet touched the ground, she looked at Elias. Her eyes widened. Then her expression changed from confusion to horror. "No," she whispered. Elias stopped. The orc girl took 1 step backward. "This is not possible." The driver suddenly became very interested in the horses. Elias glanced at him. "Where is the woman I was supposed to receive?" The driver swallowed. I think there has been a mistake." The orc girl let out a bitter laugh. "A mistake?" She looked directly at Elias. Then she pointed at herself. "You bought the wrong bride." The words hung between them. Elias could hear the wind moving through the tall grass. He looked at the girl again. She expected anger. Perhaps disgust. Perhaps he would send her back immediately. Instead, Elias noticed something else. She was afraid. Not afraid of him alone. Afraid of what would happen if he rejected her. The driver climbed onto his seat. "I'll take her back," he muttered. "The broker can sort this out." The orc girl suddenly grabbed the side of the wagon. "Back." Her voice cracked. Elias looked at her carefully. She was trying not to cry. That was when he understood. Whatever mistake had been made, this girl had nowhere to go. Elias slowly walked toward her. She stiffened. He stopped a few feet away. Then, without saying anything, he extended his hand. The orc girl stared at it. Her eyes moved from his face to his open palm. Elias smiled gently. "Maybe they sent me the wrong bride," he said. "But perhaps they sent you to the right home." For the first time, the fear in her eyes disappeared. Only confusion remained. She slowly reached forward and placed her hand in his. The orc girl did not take Elias's hand immediately. She stared at it as though he had offered her something far more valuable than a simple gesture. Kindness. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, slowly, her rough fingers slipped into his palm. Elias closed his hand gently around hers. She flinched. Not because he hurt her. Because she seemed unfamiliar with being touched without fear or cruelty. Elias noticed. He released her at once. "You don't have to be afraid of me," he said. The orc girl looked away. "My name is Mara." Mara, Elias repeated. She nodded. What's yours? Elias. I know. He raised an eyebrow. You know my name. Mara glanced toward the driver. They told me where I was being sent. Elias's expression darkened. Then you knew you were coming here. I knew I was being sent somewhere. Her voice was quiet. That is not the same thing. Elias understood that answer more than she realized. The driver cleared his throat. I'll leave her here for now. The broker will fix the mistake. Mara's face immediately tightened. Elias looked at the wagon. How long until you return? The driver shrugged. Could be weeks. Weeks? Maybe longer. Mara's fingers curled into the fabric of her dress. Elias looked at her. She had no money. No horse. No family waiting nearby. No proper belongings. And now the driver was leaving her in a place where almost everyone already knew she was not supposed to be there. Elias stepped toward the wagon. Take her things down. The driver looked surprised. All of them? All of them? Mara turned sharply. You mean I'm staying? Elias looked at her. Until we figure out what happened. Her expression remained suspicious. You're not sending me away. Not today. The driver unloaded her small bundle and left. The wagon disappeared down the dusty road, leaving Mara standing beside Elias's cabin. For several minutes, she said nothing. Then she looked around. The cabin was small but sturdy. A stack of firewood sat beside the door. A rifle rested above the porch. A horse was tied beneath a nearby tree. It was not much. But it was peaceful. Mara had never known much peace. She had been born in an orc settlement beyond the northern mountains, where strength determined everything. From childhood, she had been compared to other girls. She was too quiet. Too gentle. Too willing to forgive. The elders called her weak. Other orc girls laughed at her. Even members of her own family had treated her as though she were an embarrassment. When she grew older, the insults became worse. No one wanted to marry her. No one wanted to protect her. Eventually, someone decided that sending her away was easier than keeping her. Mara had learned one painful lesson. People only wanted you when you were useful. She looked at Elias. Why are you being kind to me? The question caught him off guard. Elias leaned against the porch railing. I don't know. Mara frowned. That makes no sense. He smiled faintly. Maybe kindness doesn't always need a reason. She looked unconvinced. Elias noticed the torn edge of her dress. You must be hungry. I'm fine. Her stomach immediately growled. Mara closed her eyes in embarrassment. Elias pretended not to hear it. Of course you are. He walked inside. Mara remained outside. A few moments later, Elias returned carrying a bowl of stew and a piece of fresh bread. He placed them on the wooden table. Mara stared at the food. When did you last eat? She said nothing. Elias sighed. Sit down, Mara. She hesitated. Then she sat. The first spoonful made her eyes widen. It was simple food, but she ate slowly at first. Then faster. Elias watched silently. He realized she had been starving. When the bowl was empty, Mara lowered it. Thank you. It was the first sincere thing she had said to him. Elias nodded. You're welcome. Outside, the settlement watched from a distance. By sunset, everyone knew. The human Apache had been sent a bride. But the broker had made a mistake. And instead of sending the unwanted orc girl away, Elias Blackwood had brought her into his home. The whispers began that very evening. She's not his bride. She's an orc. He'll regret keeping her. She'll bring trouble. Mara heard every word. She lowered her head. Elias heard them too. But he simply stepped beside her. Then he looked toward the people watching. She is my guest. The whispers stopped. Elias opened the cabin door. Come inside, Mara. She stared at him. For the first time in her life, someone had stood beside her without asking for anything in return. Mara slowly stepped across the threshold. And without realizing it, she took her first step toward a home she had never believed she would have. For the next several days, Mara tried to convince herself that she would not stay. Every morning, she reminded herself that the mistake would eventually be corrected. The broker would send the right bride. The wagon would return. Elias would realize that keeping an orc girl in his home was foolish. Then Mara would leave. That was what she told herself. But every evening, when the sun disappeared behind the distant hills, she found herself sitting on the porch beside Elias, listening to the quiet sounds of the wilderness. And slowly, something inside her began to change. Elias never treated her like a burden. He never asked why she was different. He never questioned why she had been rejected. Instead, he simply gave her work to do and trusted her to do it. Mara helped repair the garden fence. She learned how Elias stored food for the winter. She even began preparing meals. One evening, Elias returned from hunting to discover a warm dinner waiting for him. He stopped at the doorway. Mara looked up from the table. What? Elias smiled. Nothing. Then why are you staring? I was just thinking. About what? Elias removed his rifle and placed it beside the wall. I think I like coming home now. Mara's expression changed. She quickly looked down. Don't say things like that. Why? Because you don't know me. Elias sat across from her. I know enough. Mara's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. You don't know what people say about me. I've heard them. You don't know what I did. Did you hurt someone? No. Then I don't care. Mara stared at him. Those simple words frightened her more than insults ever had. She had spent her whole life believing she needed to prove she deserved kindness. Elias seemed to believe she deserved it simply because she was alive. But peace did not last. 3 nights later, Elias woke to the sound of his horse. The animal was restless. Elias immediately reached for his rifle. Mara sat up. What is it? Stay inside. She grabbed his arm. Elias. He looked at her. Lock the door. Then he stepped outside. The moon was hidden behind clouds. Elias moved silently toward the horse. That was when he saw the tracks. 4 riders. Maybe 5. They had approached from the north and stopped just beyond the cabin. Elias's eyes narrowed. He followed the tracks until he discovered something that made his blood run cold. A small piece of black cloth was caught on a thorn bush. An orc symbol had been stitched into it. Elias returned to the cabin. Mara was standing by the window. You know them, he said. Her face turned pale. No. Mara. I don't know them. Then why are you afraid? She stepped away from the window. I told you. I was sent here by mistake. That's not the whole truth. Mara looked toward the floor. Elias waited. Finally, she whispered. They found me. Who? My father's enemies. The words seemed to drain the warmth from the room. Elias slowly lowered his rifle. Your father. Mara closed her eyes. I told you I was unwanted. You said you were rejected. I was. Why? Mara's voice trembled. Because my father was an orc leader. Elias stared at her. Mara continued. He had enemies. Powerful ones. When he died, they wanted his family gone. Your family. Most of them were killed. Elias felt his jaw tighten. And you? I survived. A long silence followed. Mara looked toward the door. They don't want me alive. Suddenly, a gunshot exploded outside. The window shattered. Mara screamed. Elias pulled her to the floor. Another shot struck the wooden wall. Stay down. Elias moved toward the window. Outside, shadows raced between the trees. A voice shouted from the darkness. Send the orc girl out. Mara's entire body began shaking. Elias looked at her. The voice came again. She doesn't belong with humans. Elias picked up his rifle. Mara grabbed his sleeve. Elias, don't. Why? They'll kill you. He looked into her frightened eyes. They're already trying. They came because of me. Then they made one mistake. What? Elias stood and moved toward the door. They thought I would give you to them. Mara stared at him. Elias opened the door. He stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. His voice carried across the darkness. You came to the wrong cabin. A shot rang out. Elias fired back. The attackers scattered. Mara watched from behind the doorway. For the first time, she understood something terrifying. Elias was not protecting her because she was his bride. He was protecting her because he had chosen to. And somewhere deep inside her heart, Mara realized that the man she had once called a stranger was becoming the one person she could not bear to lose. The attackers disappeared before sunrise. Elias spent the rest of the night walking around the cabin, checking the darkness beyond the trees and searching for any sign that the strangers had returned. Mara barely slept. She sat near the fireplace, staring into the dying flames. The events of the night kept repeating in her mind. The gunshots. The shouting. And Elias standing between her and the men who wanted her dead. She had never understood why anyone would risk their life for her. Not once. When morning finally came, Elias entered the cabin carrying 2 cups of coffee. He placed one in front of Mara. She stared at it. You're not going to ask. Elias sat across from her. Ask what? Who I really am. I already know. Mara's eyes lifted. No. You don't. Elias leaned back. Then tell me. Mara looked toward the window. The settlement was quiet. But she knew the peace would not last. You should have sent me away. Elias shook his head. Why? Because now they know where I am. They already knew. Mara looked at him. What? Elias's expression became serious. Those men didn't come looking for a random orc girl. Mara said nothing. They knew your name. Her fingers tightened around the cup. They know where you live. Silence filled the cabin. Elias continued. That means someone told them. Mara closed her eyes. I knew this would happen. Elias leaned forward. Tell me everything. For a long moment, Mara refused. Then she finally whispered. My father's name was Kargan. Elias waited. He ruled an orc clan beyond the northern mountains. Not the largest clan, but one of the strongest. Mara's voice was low. He believed humans and orcs could live beside each other. Elias frowned. That sounds familiar. My father traded with human settlements. He protected travelers who crossed our land. Mara looked down. Many orc leaders hated him for that. Elias understood. Because he trusted humans. Because he trusted everyone. Mara's eyes became wet. That was his mistake. She told Elias how her father had been betrayed. A group of orc warriors had secretly joined forces with outsiders who wanted control of the clan's land. One night, they attacked. Her father was killed. Her mother was killed. Her brothers were killed. Mara survived only because her father had hidden her before the attack. When they found me, she whispered, I was 17. Elias's hands slowly tightened into fists. What did they do? They didn't kill me. Why? Because they thought I knew where my father's treasure was hidden. Elias looked surprised. What treasure? I don't know. Mara shook her head. My father never told me. The attackers refused to believe her. They imprisoned her. They questioned her. They threatened her. Eventually, one of the older women in the clan secretly helped Mara escape. She put me on a wagon heading south. And that's how you ended up with the marriage broker? Mara nodded. I had no money. No family. No protection. Her voice broke. The broker said I could work for food. Elias's expression hardened. Then how did you become my bride? I don't know. Mara looked at him. Perhaps someone wanted me to disappear. Elias suddenly remembered the driver. The man had been nervous. Too nervous. The mistake might not have been a mistake at all. Someone had deliberately sent Mara to him. But why? Before Elias could speak, Mara stood. You have to let me go. Elias stared at her. No. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. They will keep coming. Then we'll deal with them. You can't. Why? Because I care about you. The words escaped before Mara could stop them. Elias went completely still. Mara immediately looked away. I shouldn't have said that. Elias slowly stood. Mara. No. She stepped backward. I won't let them destroy your life because of me. You think sending you away will save me? It might. No. Elias moved closer. You came here because of a mistake. Mara's eyes filled with tears. Yes. And now? She couldn't answer. Elias gently reached for her hand. Mara allowed him to take it. You weren't the wrong bride, he said quietly. She looked at him. You were the person who arrived at my door. Mara shook her head. That's not the same. Maybe it is. She stared into his eyes. Elias smiled faintly. I don't care who the broker promised me. Mara's breath caught. I don't care what clan you came from. He squeezed her hand. And I don't care what anyone in this settlement thinks. Mara whispered. You should. Why? Because I'm dangerous. Elias smiled. So am I. For the first time, Mara almost laughed. But then a distant horn sounded from the northern hills. Both of them turned toward the window. Elias's smile disappeared. Mara's face went pale. They found us. Elias reached for his rifle. Outside, dust rose on the horizon. This time, there were not 4 riders. There were dozens. Mara stared at the approaching army. They're coming for me. Elias stood beside her. Then they'll have to come through me first. Mara looked at him. And suddenly, she understood the terrible truth. The man she had tried to protect by leaving was the same man who had already decided he would never abandon her. Whatever happened next, neither of them would walk away unchanged. The dust cloud grew larger with every passing minute. Mara stood beside Elias on the porch, staring toward the northern hills. Dozens of riders were approaching. Their dark figures moved across the golden prairie like a storm rolling toward the settlement. Mara knew exactly who they were. The warriors of her father's enemies. The people who had destroyed her family. The people who had hunted her for years. She stepped backward. Elias. He looked at her. You have to let me go. Elias didn't answer. I mean it. Still nothing. Mara grabbed his arm. If they find me here, they will burn your home. Elias looked toward the settlement. They may burn more than my home. Exactly. Mara's voice trembled. You have people here. Friends. Neighbors. Innocent families. Elias turned to her. And you think I'll hand you over to save them? Mara stared at him. I think you should. Elias shook his head. You still don't understand. What? I was alone before you came. Mara's expression softened. Elias continued. I had a cabin. A horse. A rifle. Enough food to survive. He looked at her. But I didn't have a home. Mara's eyes filled with tears. You do now. Yes. Elias took her hand. Because you're in it. Mara's lips trembled. Elias. You think I care about some mistake made by a marriage broker? He stepped closer. The woman I was supposed to marry never arrived. Mara lowered her head. I know. No. Elias gently lifted her chin. You don't. His eyes held hers. The woman I was supposed to marry was a name on paper. He touched her cheek. But you. His voice softened. You are Mara. She couldn't breathe. You are the woman who sat at my table. Elias continued. The woman who repaired my fence. A tear rolled down Mara's cheek. The woman who made me dinner. Another tear fell. The woman who made me look forward to coming home. Mara finally broke. She turned away and covered her face. Elias pulled her into his arms. For several seconds, she resisted. Then she collapsed against him. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Do what? Be loved. Elias held her tighter. Then we'll learn together. A horn sounded from the approaching riders. Elias released her. Mara wiped her tears. We can't stay here. I know. They moved toward the settlement. But before they could reach the first building, the orc warriors appeared. At their front rode a massive orc wearing black armor. Mara stopped. Her entire body froze. Elias noticed. Who is he? Mara whispered his name. Varek. The orc leader raised his hand. The warriors stopped. His eyes locked onto Mara. Come home. Mara shook her head. This is not my home. Varek's gaze moved to Elias. Then why does a human protect you? Mara stepped forward. Because he chooses to. Varek laughed. Humans don't choose orcs. Elias stepped beside her. This one did. The settlement watched from behind the fences. Some were frightened. Others were preparing weapons. Varek pointed at Mara. She belongs to our people. Mara's voice became stronger. I belonged to you when I had no choice. Varek frowned. But now I choose where I belong. The orc warriors began murmuring. Varek looked furious. You are your father's daughter. Mara stared at him. Yes. Her voice echoed across the settlement. And my father believed humans and orcs could live together. Varek raised his weapon. Your father was weak. No. Mara stepped forward. He was brave. The silence that followed was enormous. Then one of Varek's warriors lowered his weapon. Another followed. Varek looked around in disbelief. His own warriors were beginning to question him. Elias realized what was happening. Mara wasn't the frightened girl who had arrived at his cabin. She was finally standing in the place her father had left behind. Varek shouted. Take her. The warriors moved. Elias raised his rifle. The settlement's defenders raised their weapons too. But Mara stepped between them. Stop. Everyone froze. She looked at Varek. You came for me. He nodded. Then take me. Elias grabbed her arm. Mara, no. She looked at him. I am not running anymore. Then she turned back to Varek. But if you want me, you will have to listen first. Mara told the truth about her father's death. She revealed the names of those who had betrayed him. She explained how Varek had lied to the clan. One by one, the warriors began realizing that they had been deceived. Finally, Varek's own second-in-command stepped forward. You killed our chief. Varek's face changed. The truth spread through the warriors like fire. Within minutes, Varek was surrounded by his own people. The battle never came. The betrayal was finally exposed. Later that evening, the orc warriors departed. Mara stood beside Elias, watching them disappear. She was free. Completely free. Elias looked at her. You can go with them now. Mara turned. What? They're your people. She stared at him. And you're giving me permission to leave? I'm not your owner. Mara's eyes filled with tears again. Elias smiled. You never belonged to me. He held out his hand. You chose to stay. Mara looked at his hand. Then she smiled. No. Elias raised an eyebrow. No. Mara stepped closer. You chose me first. She placed her hand in his. Elias smiled. And for the first time, Mara no longer felt like the wrong bride. She finally felt like someone who had been chosen. The morning after Varek and his warriors disappeared beyond the northern hills, Mara woke before sunrise. For several moments, she simply stared at the ceiling. She waited for the familiar fear to return. She expected to hear shouting outside. She expected footsteps approaching the cabin. She expected someone to tell her where she was going next. But there was nothing. Only silence. Peaceful silence. Mara slowly sat up. For the first time in years, no one was hunting her. No one was ordering her to leave. No one was deciding her future. She was free. The thought should have made her happy. Instead, it frightened her. Mara had spent her entire life being told where she belonged. First by her family, then by her enemies, and finally by the marriage broker who had sent her toward a stranger. Now there was no one left to command her. She could choose for herself. Mara walked outside. Elias was standing beside the fence, repairing the damage caused during the attack. He looked over when he heard her footsteps. Good morning. Mara smiled faintly. Good morning. Elias studied her face. You look like you didn't sleep. I was thinking. About what? Mara looked toward the mountains. Leaving. The hammer in Elias's hand stopped moving. For a moment, his expression revealed something she had never seen before. Fear. Not fear of enemies. Fear of losing her. Mara noticed. You don't have to look so worried. Elias placed the hammer against the fence. Are you leaving? I don't know. He nodded slowly. Then I won't ask you to stay. Mara stared at him. Why not? Because after everything you've been through, you deserve to make your own choices. She stepped closer. What if I choose to leave? Elias looked directly into her eyes. Then I'll help you. Mara's heart tightened. And if I choose to stay? A small smile appeared on his face. Then I'll be grateful. She looked down. You're not going to ask me to stay because you love me? Elias became completely still. Mara immediately regretted the question. But Elias slowly walked toward her. I thought you already knew. Mara looked up. Elias reached for her hand. I love you, Mara. The words were simple. Yet they meant more to her than anything she had ever heard. Mara's eyes filled with tears. Why? Elias smiled. Because you're kind when the world hasn't been kind to you. He squeezed her hand. Because you're stronger than you believe. Mara looked away. And because you make this place feel like home. Her tears finally fell. Elias gently wiped one away. You were never the wrong bride. Mara looked at him. You were simply the bride I wasn't expecting. Elias reached into his coat and pulled out a small wooden box. Mara's breath caught. Inside was a simple silver ring. Elias. I know this isn't the wedding you imagined. Mara laughed softly. I never imagined a wedding. Then perhaps we can imagine one together. He held the ring between his fingers. I don't want you to marry me because someone sent you here. He stepped closer. I don't want you to stay because you have nowhere else to go. Then he held out his hand. I want you to stay because this is where you choose to be. Mara stared at his open palm. It reminded her of the first day they met. She had stood beside the wagon, frightened and alone. She had told him he had bought the wrong bride. And Elias had simply smiled and offered his hand. Now everything was different. She was no longer afraid. She knew exactly what she wanted. Mara placed her hand in his. I choose you. Elias smiled. And I choose you. He slipped the ring onto her finger. Mara looked at it through her tears. Then she stepped into his arms. For the first time, she didn't feel like an unwanted orc girl. She didn't feel like a mistake. She didn't feel like someone waiting to be sent away. She was Mara. She was loved. And she was home. As the sun rose over the prairie, Elias held her close. The woman who had arrived as the wrong bride had become the only woman he could ever imagine beside him. And Mara finally understood something she had spent her whole life searching for. Sometimes, the greatest mistake is not the one that changes your plans. Sometimes, it is the mistake that leads you exactly where you were meant to be.